Hey, what's going on, dev peoples? So this is going to be the first in a series of videos where we create a blog with Markdown using Gatsby. We'll be styling it using Tailwind CSS, and at the end I'll show you how to host it for free with Netlify. I'll leave a link in the description to the GitHub repo where you can find all the code for the project in the series. So for this first video, I want to get the project set up, get all the dependencies added, do a little bit of configuration for Tailwind, and then just clean up some file structure. So let's first make sure that we have Gatsby installed, the Gatsby CLI installed in our system. So npm i-g gatsby-cli. I'm using a Windows machine. If you're using Mac, you'll probably have to do a sudo there in the beginning of that because you're doing it globally. Not too bad. Let's clear that. It's so new Gatsby project. Let's say Gatsby new. We'll call it my Gatsby blog, and we're just gonna start from the default Gatsby template. This is probably take a minute, so I will cut away and come back when it's finished. Okay, so that's finished up. Let's change directories into our My Gatsby blog. I'm using Visual Studio Code, so VS Code. That's what I'd recommend, mostly because I know it. So if you have any issues in a different editor, I probably won't be able to help you. I could try, but I'll start with code. If you have VS Code installed, more than likely it is added to your path, so you can say code dot in your directory, and it will open VS Code into I'll open VS Code at that directory. Sorry. So let's open this up. Now the very first thing I want to do before we even look at any of these files is just install all the dependencies we're going to need ahead of time. So let's go ahead and bring in Tailwind CSS. So we'll do this first. So npm i Tailwind CSS. Just give this a second. That's all set. After that, we're going to want to create a Tailwind config. So we're going to say npx Tailwind init in the root directory here. And this should create a tailwind.config.js file right here, which should look like this. We'll go back to this afterwards. There's nothing we need to touch right now, but we will be adding our fonts there because we're going to use Roboto and we're going to use Rubik. And if we add them to the Tailwind config, then we'll be able to access them via a class from from the Tailwind syntax. Let's also really quick go into Prettier. And I just have a few settings just to make things easier so nobody gets lost as I'm working. So we're going to say arrow, parens avoid, semi, we're going to change it to true. We'll do single quote, true, JSX, single quote, false, and tab width 2. This way, everything you see changing on the screen for Prettier when it jumps around, this is the configuration I'll be using, so you know that yours will match up if you change yours to be this way. That's in the .prettierrc file. So let's finish getting Tailwind set up. So you want to come into your source directory, and you want to create a styles directory. In the styles directory, we want to create a new file. And it's going to be called, I like to name it global.css because that is literally what it is. It's doing a global CSS. Now we need to install a couple more dependencies so that way we can do things within Gatsby as far as being able to use Tailwind CSS. So let's do npm i Gatsby plugin Post Css and Gatsby plugin prefetch Google fonts. I must have spelled something wrong. Gatsby plugin prefetch Google font. Gatsby plugin prefetch Google fonts. I think that's what it is. Maybe I spelled it wrong. Let's try it again. Gatsby plugin. Oh, no, that's Post Css. Gatsby plugin prefetch Google fonts. Sorry about that. Post Css should be one word there. This might take a minute, so I will cut out and I will be back when it's done. Oh, well, it didn't take long at all, actually. Okay, now that this is done, what we need to do to make Tailwind work properly is in the root directory of the project, we need to add a new file. It's called postcss.config.js. And what we want to add here, and this is from the docs on the Gatsby site showing you how to set up Tailwind CSS. I'll leave a link to that in the description as well. But the code we want is we want to do module.exports equals a function, and we're just going to return an object where the key is plugins and say require Tailwind CSS. Save. Close that. What that's going to allow us to do is go into our global.css, and really quick, let me pull up a browser tab, and we're going to go to Tailwind. Let's look up Tailwind CSS. Go to the Tailwind website, click on Get Started. And we want this. So this @Tailwind syntax here, which is going to add all the base things for Tailwind, the utilities components. All it says everything is right here. You can read it. You could also use import if you want to. But since we added this post CSS config for Tailwind CSS, we can go into global styles and just add this like this. And even though it's reading that's an unknown rule, Gatsby is going to know what it is. Close that. Now we need to go into our Tailwind config file, and we're going to add our fonts. We're using the prefetch Google fonts, so whatever we add in our Gatsby config is what we'll be able to prefetch. So actually, you know what? Let's actually do that first. Let me not confuse anybody. Let's go to the Gatsby config, and we're going to add in our prefetch. So let's go to the bottom, open up an object, and let's do resolve equals Gatsby plugin prefetch Google fonts. And then we want to do options, which is an object, and fonts is an array of objects, and say family, Roboto. And let's do variants. It's also an array of strings. So let's say 300, 400, 500. And that'll be good for Roboto. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to copy this down in Visual Studio Code. On Windows, if you highlight whatever it is that you want to copy and you hold Shift, Alt, and push down, it will copy everything that was highlighted down for you. Here we're going to put Rubik. This is the other font that we're going to use. And we'll do 3, 4, 5. We'll do 7 and 9. And this way we have our Google Fonts when Gatsby builds everything, we'll prefetch them and they'll be in the site already. What else do we bring in? Oh, we also have to add in at the very top. We'll do this one because there's not a lot to it. So let's add the Post Css. So Gatsby plugin Post Css. So it picks up on it. While we're in here, let's say author. I'll put my name here. And for here, for the title, say my Gatsby blog. For the description, a blog about all things. Let's save that. Alright, so now that that's done, it'll prefetch our fonts and the variants for us. Now we want to go down into our Tailwind config. And we're going to just do this all ahead of time. So under the theme object here, we want a new line, and you want to say in camel case font family as an object. I'm going to do rubric, open up an array, and then each one of these values is going to be the text and the fallbacks for them. So we're just going to use these, and then we'll just again copy this line down. And here we're going to say Roboto and change this to Roboto. And that will pretty much have you set up with Tailwind. That's all set. Prettier is all set up. Our global CSS styles are all set up. What I would also like to add in the styles global CSS is just a body style. Or font family is. So I want Roboto to be my default. I'll add Arial. If you're using VS Code, it will just auto fill that the rest of it for you. And we're going to say box sizing. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm falling back to other projects. Tailwind takes care of that. Alright, that should be good. Let's go to our terminal, clear the screen out, and let's say Gatsby develop. See if that worked. Let's just bring this over here. I'll make this a little bit, bring this over to the side so we can see what's going on over here. Open new tab and wait for this to finish building. But once it does, we will take a look. We can actually go there now. If you localhost 8000, port 8000, sorry. There you go. Hi people, welcome to our Gatsby site. I'll go build something great. Go to page 2, everything's working. Let's open the dev tools really quick. Elements and the font family Georgia Serif. That's not right. Fresh. Let's see. Inspect. Body. Let's take a look really quick what's going on. We've got Roboto in here. Last time I checked, it doesn't matter, but we'll do that anyways, just in case that's wrong. Sans serif, everything's good there. The Tailwind stuff is in. Duh. It would help if we were to actually bring in the global CSS file. So in order to include this global CSS file in the project, You need to go into your Gatsby browser, delete all these comments, and we need to import /source styles global.css. Now it's rebuilding the development bundle because Gatsby browser got touched. This is a config file, so it's going to rebuild the whole server. Now we're refreshed. We might have to actually rebuild it. Let's rerun it. I'm not seeing source styles global.css. Okay. In Gatsby browser. Perfect. So let's let it restart. And then I have a feeling I know what else it might be, which we'll check right after this. Let's see. Yep, so let's actually go in here really quick. Go to components. Go to layout. Yep, this is what's happening. So Gatsby, the default template here has a layout component that comes with all of this CSS by default. So we need to go in the layout.js and just delete that line right there because it's overriding everything. Come back, and if we look, our font families are bio. You see everything kind of smaller, the margins kind of fell away, everything's a little different. So everything's all set up that way now. So let's stop there. The video is getting a bit long. So for the next video, what I want to do is clean up this components folder a little bit so we can put all these in directories and follow some type of convention. I want to clean up the pages to get rid of the page 2 and get rid of this TypeScript file. We're going to do a couple of things as far as not really setup. We will start doing code work, but we're just going to kind of finish the flush out. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.